one thing that's fun about this class in particular is that I think in many ways the hip joint is the one thing that's most critical about how we balance in weight bearing. Not so much in sitting, but definitely in standing and walking and stuff. So enhancing your sense of how is a person balancing around the hip joints is one of the best ways to understand what's going on with that person. Back in the old days, Ida Rolf had these two really big ideas. And one of the ideas was about fascia, that somehow fascia was sort of the organizing structure in the body. That was a big idea and something that people hadn't really thought about very clearly before. And her other big idea was that the critical thing about how people's structures work well or not so well is in how we're relating to gravity. That we can relate to gravity in a way that's really functional or not so functional. And the big thing that I want to say about that, which may seem novel, but I also hope will kind of sound true, is that our bodies are super good at stabilizing ourselves in whatever shape we're in. So like sometimes when people think about stability, they think about like it's either sort of happening or not happening, but I don't really think that's true. I think that like if my posture is like this, I'm very stable in this posture. My body knows just how to organize me in this posture. But we could all say, but it's not a good posture. Say, yeah, but I'm very stable in it. It's just not, the outcome is not so successful. But it's not because I'm not stable. It's because I have a weird shape. So what makes a shape weird or not weird? The number one thing for me in thinking about this stuff is that segments of the body want to get poised on top of other segments. They want to be in a neutral position relative to some other segment. And one of the things in people sort of thinking about posture and getting clear about it for themselves, one of the really big things is, can you learn to have a sort of a feeling sense of what neutral is in your body? So I'm going to just say a couple of things about what is neutral, because I feel like in the context of what we're doing this weekend, neutral is really a big deal. So one way to think about neutral is that when our segments are the most neutral, the way the body stabilizes has this sort of up feeling, like we are held up. And you don't even have to try it to sort of know in a feeling way that this posture is going to feel more up in my body, say, than this posture, right? So like part of the character of it is that there's a downness, or you could say there's a compression, or you could say there's a sinking, right? And a more structural way to think about what is that when a body is more neutral, segments are managing to balance right on top of each other, and when it's not so neutral, what that loss of neutrality is that a segment falls off of another segment. So like if I'm here, my pelvis is more on top of my legs, and if I go like this, my pelvis falls off the backs of my legs, partly because my legs fell forward, so my pelvis has to fall off the back. Or like if I'm here, my rib cage is more on top of my pelvis. If I'm here, my rib cage is more behind my pelvis. But the critical thing in terms of our relationship with gravity, is that it's not just that we're crooked, it's that we're crooked and sinking. And you can't separate crooked and sinking from each other. Like, if my rib cage is sort of in the middle, like on my pelvis, left to right, and then my rib cage goes like this, my rib cage is falling down and to the left. It can't just go like that. It has to go like that, right? So that's part of the relationship with gravity, is that as we get more neutral, what we feel in our bodies is that we feel more supported, and there's this sort of length to it, there's this upness to it. And it's, if there's one sort of physical, mental exercise I would urge you to, hang out with in sort of a generic way, is getting better and better at feeling like, this posture feels more up and more even, and this posture feels more down and less even. So there's this really simple idea that things fall in different directions. And when we think about postural patterns, part of what becomes clearer and clearer as you think about it and play with it more is that in gravity, these patterns absolutely have to have a sort of natural order. Like, if something falls back, something else has to fall forward, or we wouldn't still be standing up. If something falls to the left, something has to fall to the right. If something rotates to the left, well, that's not quite as clear, because people can actually kind of be like this. They can everything just keeps rotating to the left. But we mostly don't do that. And do you ever have this feeling? I have people come in and say this to me sometimes, that people will say, they're facing you, but they might say, if I just let my body go, it would go like this. Like, I would go into rotation, but of course, I don't walk around talking to people like this, So essentially, I steer myself in this direction, but if I actually just let my body do what it wants to do, it would just go into rotation. Have you ever had that experience before? I have clients come in and tell that to me.
Don't you see that a lot when they're laying down and relaxing?
Right.
Naturally then do that.
Right. They're not facing you anymore.
Yeah.
Their body's just doing something. Yeah. So that really simple idea of segments falling in directions in gravity is a very powerful idea, and one of the tools that we're going to use shortly when we evaluate people standing up, no matter what they're wearing, is that we start teaching ourselves to get really good at feeling what's the pattern in your body. This falls this way and that falls that way, and this twists this way and that twists that way. We start to feel that, and the patterns start to make this very, very concrete kind of sense that you could write down and you could describe it, say what it is.